people, tuned in here. So I was just going to say, before we kick off, for everybody who's on YouTube, if you want to submit your questions, you got to do that here on Zoom. So just make the transition so we can get to those at the end. We'll allocate some time to Q&A if any of those come in. So, but yeah, no, I'm excited to kick things off. For those of you who don't know, Kenny Mitchell, CMO of Snap, fantastic pedigree in the industry, coming from Gatorade, McDonald's. Before we get into things, can you share a little bit of your background with the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me know, by the way, David, if there's too much background noise. I'm in a place where there's a little bit, if you can hear it.
You're good. You're perfect. As long as you're not on mute.
All right. Yes, I did fix that. I was on the town hall with our team earlier this morning, and I actually was on mute, which was fun.
It's got to be once a day for everybody these days, right?
So listen, man, I'm originally from Philadelphia, so it's part of my little DNA. After college, I actually started as a professional basketball player. So I played basketball overseas for a little bit. Had no opportunity or potential to be in the NBA, so I needed to find a job. My first job was at a digital ad agency called TMP Worldwide. That kind of sparked my interest and burgeoning passion for marketing. So I went back to business school to get my MBA, and originally with the intent of marrying my burgeoning interest in marketing with my passion for sports, and that's what landed me at Gatorade. So I spent the preponderance of my career there, better part of 12 years, doing a variety of things, from new product innovation to marcoms to sports marketing, et cetera. Most recently, before Snap, I was at McDonald's. So I was leading, I'd say, the US marketing and communications for McDonald's, and I've been here now at Snap for 2.5 years now. It's like dog years. I feel like it's been like 20, but it's been 2.5 years, and having a lot of fun.
Yeah, the last year and a half for sure has been, time has no meaning anymore. Has it been a year and a half? Has it been a week? Has it been a decade? It's all kind of a blur. I totally get that. But look, we're thrilled to have you here. And I'm very curious, to kind of start with that, with your background, going from, Snap ad buyer, as it were, to marketing, Snap, Inc. and Snapchat. What has that transition been like for you? And I'm curious, what did you learn in your time from, the food and beverage world and the QSR world that's maybe applicable, or maybe you're kind of relearning and reinventing things like in the tech community?
Awesome. So that was baked with a few questions. So I'll try to tackle a few components of it. So I'll start by saying, probably easier to describe what's the same versus what's different, because so many things are different. So it's a very young company, so working for several Fortune 50 companies, and this is a baby or a toddler, as I like to say. It's founder-led, which comes with its own unique benefits, but also unique challenges.
I can relate.
Yeah, there you go. It's incredibly fast-paced, which I've loved, but I actually needed to get my stamina up to be able to move that quickly after working at pretty large organizations before that moved a little slower. It's technology, and I've spent most of my time in sports or food and beverages. And the technology side, David, honestly, raises a little bit of the imposter syndrome. Sitting in conversations with engineers and product people and have to remind myself constantly, is they want you for your marketing capabilities, not because of your technology chops. But one of the things I had to realize pretty early on is that it's a product-led company and product-led business. So by comparison, if you look at PepsiCo, it's a marketing-led business, right? So the leaders in the company, the GMs, the presidents, even CEO, they come up the marketing chain. Where in my time at McDonald's, you could argue that it's actually an operations-led business, and your franchisees, they call them owner-operators, right? And when I wanted to do a campaign with the Quarter Pounder, I couldn't do it without a check-in with the operations team so they can get those patties to the 14,000 restaurants. But here at Snap, it's a product-led organization. So that's kind of where the center of gravity is. So it requires me to need to understand the role that marketing would play. So I did a fair amount of listening to try to sort that out. And, we landed on a mission that's really around this idea of driving greater affinity for the brand, and helping to drive business growth. And that comes through growing our global community, growing our advertiser base on the B2B side, as well as growing our partner base. So that includes like developers and creators who actually build a business on our platform. So the things that actually have stayed the same is that focus and obsession with the consumer or with your audience. So that part is actually a part of Snap's DNA. As a company, it's product focused. So the product is a consumer focused product. So there's that part of the DNA of being like really focused and obsessed with the consumer is something that I've learned through my training at PepsiCo and have brought other places. It exists very much here, which is really welcome. The one thing that I'd share, David, it's like an interesting like insider change that I needed to rethink is that I have access to nearly 300 million people that use our platform every day to help
market
educate
researcher's
them
dream, right?
And help to engage them. Yeah, so you have first-party research, opportunities at your fingertips, and you also got to like shift your mindset around the importance of an initiative. In my past, had been associated with the size of the media budget. Right. And you use that media budget to actually buy reach. And we actually already have reach, at least with our current community.
Right.
So like kind of disassociating priority with investment was one thing that I had to kind of like reframe my head around, because there's a tremendous opportunity, particularly around like product education and engagement with different services within app that I can actually talk to the Snapchat community about. That's different than growing our community. So we definitely invest there, but like in terms of driving that like engagement, driving that that education and retention, we can do that. It's highly important, but it doesn't necessarily have media dollars associated with it, which is really different, you know?
Totally. I think there's a lot to unpack there too, because I want to talk a little bit about like the how you work with the current user base versus some of the stuff that we talked about and expanding that demographic, aging up with some of the campaigns. But before we get into that, I just want to take a step back again. When you joined, you mentioned in our prep call that you kind of had to build your marketing organization from the ground up. So I'd love to get a little bit of insight in kind of what that was like going into Snapchat and, what your philosophy and approach was to building, a world-class marketing organization.
Yeah, that's a good question, David. And I think it starts with like a fair amount of humility. And I've kind of learned that with the many roles that I've had the kind of pleasure and opportunity to be in. It's like there's many ways to actually get the work done and to have an impact. And you can't expect that you can just like take the template that you had here and apply it there and it's going to work. So I started with a bit of a listening tour. Like, let me understand how this business works, how decisions are made, and ultimately trying to like call down like, all right, what is the role that marketing can and will play at this business?
Right.
And based on that, what are going to be our goals and objectives? And then what are the capabilities that I need to build? In the spirit of a company that moves really quickly, like, my boss, Evan, who's the co-founder, he gave me like a few weeks to start to do my assessment. And like, it's kind of like a little funny story, David. My first day working, we're going through orientation and everything. I have a one-on-one with him, and I asked him, all right, man, where do you want me to focus? Where are the big priorities that you want me to try and tackle that we haven't maybe covered through the interview process? How will you judge me at the end of the year?
Sure.
And he basically said, I don't know, man. That's why I hired you.
Your own KPIs. I love it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know. You got to figure that out. So went through kind of this listening tour, kind of figured out kind of the opportunity, started to shape a little bit of a mission and strategy for the team. And I built out a few capabilities. There's 5 of them that are the focus of the team. Many of them just like literally didn't exist. I inherited a team of a little less than 24 people. Like it wasn't a marketing team. It was kind of like an internal creative services group. So we've had to build out a marketing organization. The first capability was really around consumer marketing. So, helping to tell our story to both our current community as well as ways to help grow our future members of the Snapchat community. Also connects a little bit with like how we tell stories around AR, how we talk about and educate around our features, how we do some of our growth and user acquisition work, how we how we are trying to market and storytell around like our hardware, spectacles, things like that. Second group is our business marketing organization, which existed certainly in spirit within the company. It was kind of connected to the sales org. We kind of brought that in under the marketing organization, have like scaled it tremendously since we've brought it on board. And their focus is obviously on advertisers, agencies, holding companies, and just helping to drive kind of like consideration ultimately. So educating on the platform, educating on our audience so that we are in the consideration set when it comes to marketing opportunities, and hopefully like excite them a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
And that's what we're here at Adweek. We did like a little bit of a takeover with that intent of
I saw it's all over the place. We got to get into that a little bit. We didn't, that wasn't it hadn't hit the news yet when we had our prep call, so we didn't even get to talk about that.
I know. I'll go quickly through the three other capabilities, then we can move on. So we didn't have a consumer insights function.
Sure.
So we actually built that up, and doing a lot of the fundamentals that didn't exist here. So we didn't have a consumer segmentation that looked at our full addressable audience. We didn't have a assessment of like the drivers of growth and usage across our platform. We didn't have our brand perception and looking at that globally. So building out some of that as well as measurement across some of the work that we do. We have a marketing operations team, which does exactly what it would sound like, making sure we know how we're utilizing our time, our dollars, and our people to get our work done. And then we have a creative team, an internal creative team. Sure. And this part was actually pretty important to me because with the founder-led company, based on all, my discussions with folks that are in similar roles that I'm in now, as well as like folks on the agency side, you actually want to build a team that has like really good instincts and understanding of the product, the brand, the consumer, from like really good proximity, and can be like quick and nimble and can iterate, particularly when in the tech world with the founder-led company. In order to do that with a traditional like holding company agency of record model, that's not set up very well. Right. So we wanted to bring in and build capabilities around creative and our creative development in-house. So those are the team. We are scaled and continuing to grow internationally as well. Yep. Those are capabilities that we built and what we're focused on.
I love it. I think hopefully our community can learn a lot from kind of the way that you built that from the ground up. I mean, some of the stuff that you're talking about, the in-house creative capabilities, definitely something that we're hearing across the board from our community. Got to move fast, and the best way to do that is to, develop some of those capabilities, in-house, in partnership with agencies. But, there is an imperative to move faster these days. So that brings us to the next good question. So, you guys, let me bring up my sheet here. Open your Snapchat, right? That was the big campaign. Can you walk us through that a little bit, kind of the inception, the goals, and how you brought it to life?
Absolutely. So Open Your Snapchat essentially is an invitation, a literal invitation to open your Snapchat and experience the fun, the creativity, and even the utility of augmented reality, which is, one of the inherent aspects of our platform. Absolutely. It's something that we wanted to kind of demonstrate and bring to life in a fun way, and in a way that was like a bit kind of interesting and provocative. So we used a combination of, kind of like out of home, digital, and like I'd say some fun experiential storytelling, like what we're doing here at Adweek, to help dimensionalize the power, the fun, again, and the utility of AR. One of my favorite examples is what we did in London. So those who are familiar with London, the Waterloo station, which is their big train station there, we did a bit of like a little mini takeover where we had some signage, some out of home that basically said something big is coming to Waterloo. So a little bit of a double entendre of the train dynamic. And if you scanned the snap code, it actually unlocked this massive whale that was kind of flowing through Waterloo Station. And if anyone's been there, it's like a cavernous, it's like a massive station. And we had a little bit of fun by putting like a decal on the floor with like a shadow that was kind of shaped like a whale, and just kind of signaled that there was something fun and interesting happening there. And we did that, kind of that type of activation kind of across our campaign. And what was fun is that we were able to be incredibly like localized and bespoke. Right. So I mentioned I'm from Philly before. So we did some out of home that was like really connected to Philly and its history and its culture. So there's like, some work that we had that basically said, hey, if you're all about the Benjamins, and you like open your Snapchat, and it actually would open up a lens that featured like Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers that's connected to Philadelphia. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we had those type of like activations that felt like localized, that felt like really relevant, and also helped to showcase the fun and the power of augmented reality. So what I really like about the campaign, which we've been uniquely able to do, is because I have like our kind of consumer side of the house and our business marketing side of the house, we're able to connect this campaign across audiences. So here we are at Adweek right now, and we have, we try to do like a little bit of a takeover where we brought the notion of open your Snapchat, but then connected it from a advertiser perspective, showing how some brands have actually worked with us leveraging AR and seen tremendous results. So showcasing some examples of that. But also advertisers they're consumers too. So we wanted to have some good fun, and we've kind of surrounded Hudson Yards, and even done a activation here in partnership with Shake Shack, where we took over the Shake Shack here in Hudson Yard on the 4th floor. If anybody is nearby, you need to come through and check it out. And we basically created the Snap Shack, where we did a nice little takeover, highly immersive, AR as a component of it. And you have the opportunity to actually scan one of the codes, and it unlocks some of our commerce experience. So you can actually shop for a t-shirt or a hat that you can pick up directly in the store. This was a good kind of display of that experience. And all around the event, we have codes where you can unlock to get some free fries and swing by the Snap Shack. And we've just heard from the folks at Shake Shack. They're like, these are some of the best days that we've had in the year, based on the foot traffic that was generated just from consumers as a part of this.
That's fantastic. I mean, just to go back, I mean, there's a couple things there. I mean, like, I love the use of out of home. I remember when I was reading up on it, and that caught me off guard, the role that it played for you guys, but the way that you're putting it now, that you can kind of use the out of home to create, culturally relevant, localized experiences that are unique to different locations, really makes a lot of sense. So I love the creativity there. Is that something that you drawn on from your time with McDonald's or Gatorade? Is that unique to Snap? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super bullish on out of home.
That's great. I love it.
Super bullish. And it's one of the few mediums where, you're the least distracted from other screens, first and foremost, whether you're driving or walking or anything like that. Also, across my career, when I've looked at like marketing mix modeling analyses, out of home generally performs decently well. It complements usually a part of a larger campaign, but it generally performs decently well. Any folks out here who run these analyses and have out of home would probably, like, many times I'm like, I'm surprised, but it's true. And with this out of home, it actually allowed us to take something often static and make it immersive by leveraging these snap codes to unlock cool experiences. So, we had some out of home around some shopping areas where it actually unlocked people's ability to try on clothes that were actually in the stores. So it's a really cool format that we've used in different ways that I think will continue. I'm bullish on, and I think we'll continue to use.
I love it. And you're kind of hitting my next question right here is, social commerce. You kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I mean, that's something that we're hearing about a ton from our community, through Snapchat and other platforms, whether it's D2C brands or traditional retailers that are trying to kind of jump on that growing behavior. What are you guys, what are you seeing? What are you doing? What is Snapchat allowing? I mean, that seems to be one activation, but like, what are you seeing in this social commerce space?
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously commerce is huge and growing, and probably unsurprisingly, it's also really big on Snap. So in fact, there was a recent Piper Sandler teen study that came out that found that like purchasing via social platforms had increased, and not surprising, the top platform and the favorite platform for purchasing was Snapchat. And I think part of it is because our team has invested very deeply in our advertising product to help drive performance, and they've done it to really good success. So much so that our business, and this is public information that's been shared, our business is over 50% direct response. And that is the most rational advertisers looking for, specific outcomes. And, when it comes to commerce specifically on Snapchat, the one unique role that Snapchat plays in this commerce world is that you can leverage our augmented reality platform for try-ons and, and it's something that we saw accelerate tremendously during the pandemic. Anything from sneakers, I love my sneakers, to clothes, to sunglasses, to makeup. My one example I love to give is my wife. She used to love going to the makeup counter to, try on lipstick or whatever it might be. And since the pandemic, far less so. Right. But, if you're a makeup company or a beauty company, and they're used to like sampling and providing that experience, how do you do it? You actually can bring the counter to your consumer using AR. So my wife, like right now, she will try on lipstick or try on sunglasses and buy directly from that lens and call it a day. And that is something that we expect to continue to grow. We've seen it accelerate already, and we're pretty excited about it.
So yeah, that again, you're like, I know you're all over my questions. I don't know, maybe this my Google Doc open on your screen there. But no, we talked about this, right? Like when augmented reality, was thrown around, a decade ago. It was maybe a little, premature. The technology was not quite caught up with the imagined, use cases, right? But a lot has advanced since then. We talk about when people buy smartphones these days, there's two primary, considered factors: your battery life and the camera, right? So, we're you guys are all about the camera and all about augmented reality. And we talked a little bit about the myth busting there. So I'd love to kind of, get a feel for, there's certainly a lot of brands I think that are excited about the technologies, but not quite sure how to implement them or use them, or if they're right for them. So like, what do you want to tell our community about that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I think about it a little bit like this, David. Like when I started my career, TV, print, out of home, and radio were the mediums, and I'm aging the hell out of myself, but like that's a truism. And then over the years, there were like these new conventions that came about. So like understanding and building strategies around the web and search became one of them. Then social media and mobile became another. And I believe strongly, and it's happening right now, that the next computing platform is the camera and AR. And so any modern marketer out there, they should be asking themselves the question right now, like, what is my camera and AR strategy? And what's crazy is this is a revolution that's happening like right now in plain sight. So on Snapchat, there are hundreds of thousands of developers and creators that are making millions of AR experiences that are being used by our community every single day. Of the nearly 300 million users that we have daily on the app, 200 million of them are using AR every day. And half of the experiences that they use are made by our creators. So there's this ecosystem that already exists in a pretty unique way. So it's a revolution that's happening right now. And I believe strongly in it, but it's like, there's more proof to this. If you look at other in the technology world, they are making camera-based hardware. Whether any of the big tech companies, they are making camera-based hardware because they kind of understand that same premise.
Right.
So, we feel like we are delivering on that now. We feel like it will continue to grow more and more. So if I'm a marketer, I'm trying to figure out what that strategy is and the role that my company should be looking at AR, whether it be for try on, like the examples I mentioned before, whether it be for like fun and creative storytelling. One of my favorite examples is actually Pampers came to us with a brief and said, hey, 6 million kids are not being read to in the US every day because there aren't kids' books in the home for some reason or another. So we work with them to actually take that logo that's on the Pampers packaging, scan that, and it opened up a storybook. So like a Peter Rabbit storybook with like both the words, so you're reading the story, but also like the really fun and creative and immersive aspects that actually are happening right in front of you. So like it can be anything from, brand building to storytelling to try on. There's tremendous opportunities there. And it's kind of limited by your creativity. So
I love it.
Yeah, so that would be my biggest piece of advice for marketers out there. Like, hey, I'd be taking a really, really close look.
So let me ask you. So from a behavioral standpoint, I mean, we talked about again the core user base. Obviously skews maybe a little bit younger. People are more comfortable with these behaviors, social commerce, using the AR capabilities. How much of a focus is it for you to kind of educate and age up the audience and kind of make those behaviors more widespread, or show more people of different age groups how you guys can use it, people can use this creatively? Where does that factor into the campaign?
Yeah, that's definitely a component of our strategy is helping to basically shine the light on some of the kind of the value that our platform delivers to our community. And it's funny, David, our Snap just celebrated its 10th year anniversary. So it's a fifth grader. Right now.
I got a 10-year-old. I know, it's crazy. It's
crazy. So it feels like it's been around forever, but then again, you turn around and it's a fifth grader, right? And so it's hard to even kind of like suggest what the life cycle of the consumer is because we just have not been around that long. So if someone was a very young user of 12, 13, 14 years old 10 years ago, they're still young now. and so like our retention actually has been very solid, but we don't know kind of what that life cycle looks like. But what we do know is that our platform for many folks can be disorienting because it is not a feed-based platform and service. This was done very intentionally. And that was a part of like the design and the principles around the platform. It's really about kind of communicating with your close friends and, expressing yourself creatively, et cetera. But it opens to the camera. And if you are used to, these services that open to some form of feed, then it's just like, what's going on here? Like, I don't understand what's going on.
Totally different.
But it was built so that you can actually, in the moment, share what you're thinking or what you're feeling. Because 9 times out of 10, when people open Snapchat, is because they're thinking of someone and they want to share that moment. And we wanted to reduce as much friction as possible to make that happen. So that's why it opens directly to the camera, so you can share these moments with your friends and your family. But as the CMO, part of my job is like, there's hundreds of millions of people who see value in this platform and this service. I need to shine a light on that. For others, so they can see and understand the fun, the creativity, the connectivity, the closeness with friends and family that people have with the Snapchat service. So that's certainly a part of our strategy. It's something that we'll continue, and there's some things that are encouraging signs for us. So if it's a global business that we have, and if you look in markets like the Nordics or the Middle East, we actually have broad distribution across different age cohorts. It's in places like the US and the UK and some other markets where we're perceived as younger. Like there's other places where we are just a highly relevant platform across ages. So there's proof that this exists and that there's an opportunity for us to continue to try and serve that.
Yeah, fantastic. No, I mean, again, as the technologies become more widespread and more people become comfortable with them and the behaviors become more widespread, yeah, I absolutely see that. But that actually brings me to my next question. I mean, this is also came in a little bit alluded in the questions, which, right, you have this core, very engaged, massive user base, maybe does skew a little bit younger, but those are the people that lots of other marketers are desperately trying to connect with, right? Gen Z, highly elusive, major bullshit detectors, right? Like, what have you learned? You talked about building the consumer insights, group. Like, what have you learned about that kind of cohort that you might be able to share with us? Anything that you think would be interesting for our community?
Yeah, so when I think about, first of all, when we think about these cohorts, oftentimes people will talk about like Gen Z and millennial, and even like Gen Alpha, which is kind of the next one up.
I got two of them.
They themselves are incredibly diverse, right? So Gen Z, goes from 12 to early 20s, early mid 20s, and millennials go to your mid 20s to people in their early 40s. So very, very different life stages that exist across them. The one benefit that I think I've had as a marketer within my career is I've primarily focused on, I'd say, like that young adult life stage. From my time at Gatorade, time at McDonald's, and other places, and so I definitely have a good sense of them, and I think there's actually more kind of high level similarities than there are like tremendous differences. Of course, there's going to be differences based on time you were born and like kind of the formative experiences that you've had based on that. But one thing that I think is one truism is that the bullshit detector and the kind of marketing radar could not be higher for these younger generations, because they like it is everywhere. It is in their, social services, their digital services. It's in television. It's in, people that they follow, and so they have an incredibly high radar when it comes to marketing. And what I think we found most successful, and what I found most successful in my career, is really focusing on the value that you deliver to that consumer and try to articulate that in a way that is creative, in a way that is provocative, in a way that is, harbors some form of an emotion, whether it makes you like smile or makes you think or makes you, inspires you, and doing it in a way that is very relevant to your business and to your brand. So that to me has been part of the formula for connecting with the younger consumers. But at the end of the day, the experiences that many of them have had, and kind of the larger societal challenges that they face have created different like outlooks on things, right? So we often talk about Gen Z as being like one of the most like tolerant, the most educated, the most diverse, and most active generations in a lifetime, and brand values actually mean a tremendous amount to them. We also talk about, based on what they've lived through, whether it be the Great Recession to now the pandemic and social unrest and things like that, like security and like belief in institutions have been like impacted. They have the desire to go out and have an impact themselves, and you're seeing so much of that. So we definitely keep that, like those behaviors and those mindsets in mind in a lot of our work, and I'm sure so many other marketers out there are on the same page.
For sure. All right, I think we're getting towards time, so I got a couple more questions and one from the community. So I was going to ask, we're at the end of the year, right? Like, and I was going to ask you about thinking about 2022 and predictions and things like that. And your response was like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. How do you predict, right? Like next year. So I'll ask you this instead. Like, as a marketing leader, how do you what is your strategy in planning for uncertainty? Is there something that you think about, like any philosophy or anything that you kind of, a guiding principle when you're trying to build campaigns and strategies and plans, but you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next month? It's a challenge that everybody's facing right now.
Yeah, it's a bit of a truism, but the level of like nimbleness and the ability to bob and weave has never been more important than it is now. There have been so many instances where, we've had, like, for example, last year, in 2020, we were working on our Snap Partner Summit. And, the summit is like a big collaboration across the company. And we build out, we're launching a bunch of new products and features. And this was 2020, so a lot of these had been like delayed. We were like one of the first ones out. We found some unique ways to use AR to help bring the idea to life. We recorded it ahead of time. We're going through like, production and editing and all these type of things. And then some massive social unrest things happen. And like, all right, well, now we got to figure out how, if we're still going to push this out, like, how are we going to acknowledge what's happening in society, and
Sure.
what is our message in connection to that? So we, on a dime, we had to, figure out exactly how we were going to approach it and acknowledge what was happening in kind of in greater society in the moment. And I think that type of nimbleness, that's like one example, but that type of nimbleness is like table stakes now. It's
Absolutely.
an absolute requirement that we need to kind of react and move at the speed of culture, and be able to, kind of galvanize our team, kind of almost like fortify our team to be prepared that like, hey,
Right.
things may change, and we have to be, able to address it. So we've been going through our 2022 planning right now. It's like literally our planning cycle.
Yep.
And, we feel good about the direction that we have, but we also have given ourselves the grace that like many things are unpredictable, and we have to be able to respond at the speed of culture. And I think we've started to put a kind of like a processes and mindsets around it where the team feels comfortable, moving quickly, making shifts, and being nimble.
Well, that's great. Yeah, definitely. I think everybody's thinking about next year, and it's that kind of dilemma. Like, we have to plan, but you also are kind of paralyzed a little bit because so much can change. So it's definitely table stakes, to your point. And it's a mentality as much as it is a formal process. So I love that. We got 5 more minutes, so I'll throw this at you. Somebody in the audience asked, do you have any mentors, or are there people in the industry that you look to for inspiration these days?
Yes, that's a great question. I have mentors that may not know they're mentors. They may think they're friends, but they're actually mentors. I've had the pleasure of working with some really remarkable people, or having exposure to some really remarkable people throughout my career. There's folks like Carla Hassan, who's a CMO over at JP Morgan, who's a good friend. Morgan Flatley, who I work with both at Gatorade and I work for at McDonald's, who's a dear friend and a mentor. I have folks outside of the industry, a gentleman who I think is absolutely brilliant. I got introduced to him when I was in business school. He's kind of like a comms ninja. He used to run global issues management for Nike. His name is Beta Manager. And I go to him from time to time for thoughts and for feedback. And then I just have like my buddies in my friend network that I'll reach out to. I think what's been tricky, if I'm being very honest, is finding mentors who that look like me. I've tried and continue to try to be that mentor for others who are kind of coming up in the marketing field and in the business field more broadly, that are men and women of color that are seeking advice and seeking consultation. Many of which I've like worked with or worked for or hired or collaborated with, and try to be a bit of a sounding board. I think it is my both privilege as well as responsibility to try and lift as I climb, as they say, and do what I can to help support others, and have definitely like reached out to many in my process as well.
I love that. It's really admirable. And so kudos. I mean, definitely really important. So, and I think the greater industry appreciates you for that. So thank you on behalf of, the marketing community, for putting in that effort. I think, right. Like we need more people like Kenny. So again, I love it. I'll go with one last question as we wrap things up. And this is more, again, on a personal note. Love that. Last question is just, one of the things that we talk about with our community, last year and a half, lots of weirdness, some good stuff, so lots of not so good stuff. Have you taken on any, passion projects, personal hobbies? I know it's sometimes tough with everything going on, busy at work, but whether people start baking or painting or gardening, what have you been up to? Binging a new show? Anything new on the home front?
Yeah. I'll give you a bad one and a good one, I think.
Okay.
So I am right now doing Sober October.
Okay.
Because I realized that, what used to be that commute to work that would turn your brain off from being in the office to being home and kind of
transition,
engage with your family. Because I didn't have that, my transition was pouring a cocktail. Like when my day was done, like I would go pour a drink, so much so that I found myself like kind of like wanting to get done with my day so I can get to a cocktail. I was like, okay, that's too much. I need to regulate. So my birthday was October 1st, and decided like, all right, to kick off my birthday, we're going to do a little Sober October so I can get back in balance a little bit. So
I like that.
That's a bad thing that I've taken on since the pandemic.
It's good. Yeah. Self-awareness is key.
Self-awareness is good. The other thing on the positive side is I have been playing the guitar. So I've been taking some guitar lessons, and picked that up for the first time. It's like when you got a little time on your hands. I love music. I'm a former DJ. I'm big time passionate about music. Anybody that knows me knows that well. But I've never been able to play an instrument. So I'm in the early stages of trying to get that going.
Well, that's fantastic. I love to hear that. Hopefully we'll see you in person, Super Bowl, South by Southwest, something next year when we keep opening it up and you can put on a little show for us. We'll have.
I don't know about that, but I will. I'd be happy to talk to you again.
Open mic night, brand innovator style. Well, Kenny, thank you so much. Happy belated birthday. This was a pleasure, as always, seeing you, chatting with you. So on behalf of our community, thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And everyone who's at Ad Week or enjoying it, enjoy the rest of it.
And before you roll out, you dropped just so much knowledge, and I just want to wrap a couple things up. But you mentioned Gen Z, Gen A coming up, millennials. I'm Gen X, so I'm a cable kid, MTV generation. I remember like our biggest innovations were like USA Today had color photos, right? Or like it was like the second TV in the house, like blew minds. So to see AR and camera, that was a nugget that you dropped that everyone should be paying attention to. If you don't have a strategy yet, you better. So, I mean, there's so much you had there, but that was the biggest takeaway for me.
I appreciate you saying that, because you remember all of the hand wringing that people have done over the years on like, how are we going to get to know millennials, and how are we going to get a social strategy or or a mobile strategy? It's like, these are the things that, the fast movers and the modern marketers are able to really take advantage of and help their businesses win.
I mean, by the way, I have this on because I don't have a snap filter on here, but you guys do have snap filters on Zoom. I know that. So it's not just your phone camera, it is your PC camera.
That's exactly right. So there is Snap Camera. It's literally something you can download via your desktop. And you can experience a lot of the lenses that we have, a lot of the backgrounds, a lot of the really fun stuff that you have on the application we actually have, via the Snap Camera app. So everybody check it out. I should have had it on right now as an acknowledgement.
But I got Philly for you right here. I got Philadelphia for you, Rocky Balboa. Let's go.
My man, I love it.
You're doing great work. ViacomCBS is a big partner with Snap. With our content and how we engage fans. So it's a great relationship. And we're around the corner when we're actually in real life. So We'll be back to
There
Times
we go.
Square soon.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Kenny.